And then in Zechariah chapter 7, and I have a teaching on this on nehemiaswall.com. In Zechariah chapter 7, the people come to Zechariah after the temple's finally been rebuilt. They've been back in the land for decades. We don't know exactly how long, but it seems like it's decades, right? And how do we know? We had King Cyrus, we had King Artaxerxes, and then now we're in the time of King Darius. And maybe there are some other kings in the middle, it's not clear, but we're in the third Persian emperor, and it's only then that they finished building the temple. They come to Zechariah and they say, for these 70 years that we were in exile, we used to fast every year, 4 times a year. And what were the fasts? So those are referred to in the book of Zechariah as the fast of the 4th month and the fast of the 5th month. Boy, there's a lot of fuzz in there.
There's a lot
of fast of the 10th month,
fasting.
Fast of the 7th month, the fast of the 10th month. So there's 4 fasts. And what are these fasts? Well, it doesn't explicitly tell us, but we can infer. And we don't really have to infer because I got news. Some of these fasts are still observed today in rabbinical Judaism.
Okay.
And even some Karaite Jews observe these fasts. So the 4 fasts were different key events in the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple by the Babylonians in 586 BCE. So the first in the cycle of these fasts is actually at the end of the year, in the 10th day of the 10th month, what they call today in Hebrew Asara B'Tevet, the 10th of Tevet, or the 10th day of the 10th month. How do we know that? Because we read in 2 Kings, and it describes for us how that's when the siege of Jerusalem began under the Babylonians in 586 BCE. Right. So the 4 fasts are, it began on the 10th day of the 10th month, was the siege of Jerusalem in the 586 BCE. It might have been 587, actually, technically, depending when that fell out during the year. And then it would have been 587. So then the siege continues from the 10th day of the 10th month into the next year, the 9th day of the 4th month. And we're told in the Tanakh that on the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine overtook the city. They were under siege and they ran out of food, and they ran out of, mainly out of food, they didn't run out of water. And the army of King Zedekiah, who was defending the city, collapsed and fled. And meaning they had a secret passage to leave the city. They fled, the Babylonians chased them, and there was no one defending the city. And then from the 9th day of the 4th month until the 10th day of the 5th month, so for 1 month and 1 day, the Babylonians went through the city, street by street, fighting and destroying it until the city was completely burned and the temple was fully burned on the 10th day of the 10th day of the 5th month. To this day, Jews will fast on the 9th of Av, the 9th day of the 5th month, even though in the Tanakh it says it's the 10th day.
Bad things.
And the rabbis they have an excuse. They say, well, it burned for several days, and the worst part was the 9th day, which, maybe that's right. I don't know.
Okay.
That's not what the Tanakh says, but could be. It does say it burned, or it seems to say it burned for several days. That part's correct. And the second temple was destroyed in the same day.
So the context here is that they're fasting.
They're fasting. And then the final fast is when the Jews who had survived the destruction of the temple and the exile, 2 months later, they assassinate the Babylonian governor, Gedaliah, and then they flee to Egypt. So there was this remnant of Jews that remained, and rather than submitting to the Babylonian authority, which Jeremiah had told them to do, they rebel against the Babylonians once again, kill the governor, and then realize, oh no, the Babylonians are going to come and kill us, and they flee to Egypt, and they take Jeremiah with them as a prisoner.
Oh no.
And as far as we know, he died in Egypt, captive to these rebellious Jews. And then he has a whole prophecy like Jeremiah 44 we've talked about, which is a curse upon those Jews in Egypt. So there were 4 days, 4 key events that they fasted on. And during those 4 events, they're mourning over the destruction of the temple and the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of the Jewish presence in Israel and the exile. And they come to Zechariah in chapter 7, and they say, we've been fasting for all these years, and the temple is now rebuilt, and we're back in the land. Should we keep fasting? And his answer is a prophecy from Yehovah. The answer is, I never told you to fast. When you ate, it was you wanted to eat. When you drank, and it was because you wanted to drink. And when you fasted, it was because you wanted to fast. I never told you to fast in the first place. I never commanded you to fast in this situation, right? You have a fast in the Yom Kippur, Now, if you think about the difference between the Torah, the valid fasts of the Torah in the whole Tanakh versus these fasts, all of the fasts that we see in the Torah and in ancient Israel that were deemed valid by the prophets are fasts about something that's going to happen in the future. Right? So why am I fasting on Yom Kippur? I'm asking God for mercy. I've sinned, and I'm asking for, it's an act of repentance saying, God, don't punish me. Atone for my sins, let my sins be atoned. Right? That's what the fasting is. And the great example is when David's son is dying, and he's fasting. And then the son dies, and he gets up and eats, and the people are dumbfounded. They're like, what are you doing? You know, when the boy was sick, you fasted. Now he's dead, you're eating. He said, when the boy was sick, there was a chance that God would save him, would heal him. And I was fasting in that event. Now that he's dead, what's the point of fasting? He says, he's not coming to me, I'm going to him.
So he was beseeching Yehovah.
Right. So it's an act of prayer about something in the future. These 4 fasts they asked Zechariah about over the destruction of the temple are about things that happened in the past. They're mourning over things that already happened. And God's response is, I never told you to do that. I never told you to fast over these things that happened in the past. You have this custom of doing it, but that was something I commanded you to do. And then at the end of the prophecy, it's a series of prophecies. And these series of prophecies in Zechariah 7 and 8, they're about, these are a series of prophecies. He says, here's what I told you to do. And these were things before the exile, during the exile, that God is saying, here's what I told you to do. It wasn't fasting. And then he ends in 8:19. He says, thus says Yehovah of hosts, the fast of the 4th month, and the fast of the 5th month, and the fast of the 7th month, and the fast of the 10th month, boy, my with before coming out here, shall be for the house of Judah for, oh, it's even worse in Hebrew, L'sasonu l'simcha. It's a lot of sibilants.
Syllables?
No, sibilants.
What's a sibilant?
A sibilant is a sound that's sa or sh or z. It's a certain type of linguistic sound. It doesn't matter. So it shall be l'sasonu l'simcha, for celebration and rejoicing, and for good moadim tovim, and good appointed times. And he says, v'ha'amet v'ha'shalom ehavu, but love, peace, and truth.
Peace and truth.
So you asked if you should fast? No, what you should do is love, peace, and truth.
Love peace.
And truth.
And love truth.
Love, peace, and truth.